We started with 8 openings when it came to the head coaching search of 2024 in the NFL. Started with 8. The Falcons, the Panthers, the Chargers, the Seahawks, our Commanders, the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Titans. 3 have filled their position. New England Patriots hired successor Gerard Mayo to Bill Belichick. The Raiders kept AP, Antonio Pierce, culture changer. One of the rare instances where the interim guy actually keeps the job. And the Tennessee Titans got much younger, and they went offensive guy, Brian Callahan. You already know how that offensive coaching tree works. If you've shared a room, if you've shared a playbook, if you've shared a sideline with Shanahan or McVay, you will get an offensive job. And Brian Callahan is definitely someone the league has been looking out for quite some time. So congratulations to those guys. And I sense a theme here. You notice how all these teams are getting younger? They're all getting younger. Gerard Mayo right now currently is the youngest head coach in the league. Brian Callahan, 39. Gerard Mayo, 37. Antonio Pierce a little older, but he's not old either, though. He's in his 40s. You see? The league's getting younger. So miss me with all the leader of men. He has to be a stoic leader of men. You don't need to be some rah-rah leader of men to get a job in the NFL and to keep a job. I don't think Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, and Kyle Shanahan need to rah-rah speech you to death and give you remember the Titans, Denzel Washington type soliloquy before you play a football game every Sunday. It's not necessary. You can be an X's and O's guys and be a thorough enough communicator to get your point across and for guys to resonate with you on a deep level, on a level that they believe in you and they actually believe what you're teaching, because some guys are hard asses for no reason. We've seen that play out here in Washington very recently, but there's 5 left. 5 left of the Mohicans. The Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, Los Angeles Chargers, Seattle Seahawks, and our Washington Commanders. Let's make a prediction for the rest of the vacancies, starting with the Atlanta Falcons. They've done 2 interviews with the old fart Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time. It seems very odd to have interviewed the greatest coach of all time twice and not come up with a contract, but I appreciate Arthur Blank and them boys sticking to their wits and going through the process. It appears to be a power struggle between Bill Belichick and Falcons CEO front office member Rich McKay. Bill wants the power. That's why I wanted no parts of Bill Belichick. So when cucks like Mike Florio was telling us that Bill Belichick to Washington makes sense, I'm like, no, because we want a real front office structure. We don't want a coach running the whole situation. And not a fan of Bill Belichick, the GM. Bill Belichick, the coach, is a good coach, great coach. Bill Belichick, the GM, very iffy. A lot of draft fuck-ups. We'll see. I think for the Falcons, we're looking at Bill Belichick's job to lose. If they don't get him, Bobby Slowick, because they're going to miss out on Ben Johnson, and we all know why. We're going to get to us last. Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have Dave Tepper, the reincarnation of Daniel M. Snyder in Carolina, a meddlesome owner. The only difference between Tepper and Snyder is Tepper is the second richest owner in the league as we currently sit. Tepper is loaded with money, and Daniel Snyder's whole entire net worth and existence fell into the team. Like, he didn't really have money outside of the team. He had to take loans to get the team. So the money's very different. I think the Panthers are going to have to take what they can get after everybody else gets their target. So they're getting leftovers. For the Panthers, I'm giving them Dave Canales, offensive coordinator, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You saw the magic he made with Baker Mayfield this year. Their scheme looks good. Wide receivers are always open. Let's move to the Los Angeles Chargers because that's more time than I ever want to spend talking about the Carolina Panthers. Chargers, Harbaugh should be done today. They said the deal was closing. He brought his wife up to LA for the second interview. They've interviewed a lot of folks. Their former GM just took the Raiders job, Tom Telesco. The Chargers are on a collision course with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is going to LA. He's going up there with Justin Herbert. You know how Harbaugh do. He's going to come bringing his people. You got to hire a GM guy that works and corresponds with him. And he could be a little difficult, a little chaotic. He's going to a spot with already an established quarterback. He's going to a division with Andy Reid and Sean Payton. So it's going to be fireworks in that division going forward. What they call it, the division of death that never existed, it's probably going to exist now. Seattle Seahawks. Dan Quinn should be in ink to Seattle. It should be in ink. Unless they want to go younger, Dan Quinn and Mike Macdonald from the Ravens. Something tells me Mike Macdonald and Bobby Slowick may take the year and go back and coordinate and dominate in their locations for one more year, and the Seahawks go with Dan Quinn, someone they know there already. The guy who helped orchestrate the Legion of Boom in Seattle goes back and becomes the successor to Pete Carroll. I think the Seahawks and Falcons are the only last obstacles or hurdles in the way of Washington inevitably getting their guy, but I think the Seahawks end up bringing Dan Quinn out there so he can get that defense right. Defense with some young tools and Woolen and Witherspoon, Quandre Diggs, and all the guys they get. Julian Love. They got a lot of guys over there. They got some ballers over there in Seattle, and I think Dan Quinn can get them boys right for real. That's a defensive-minded team. I think they'll try to go the young offensive route, but there's just not enough guys to go around because the belle of the ball and the guy everybody wants is coming to Washington. The offensive guru, the next in line of the McVay, Shanahan, McDaniels cloth, Benjamin David Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator. You are a Washington Commander. Washington is sending a full contingent to Detroit following their NFC Championship appearance at San Francisco next week. We're not playing games. You know, when you quarter female, sometimes you gotta split the difference. You don't even gotta meet me. You don't even gotta come to me, baby. I will come to you. I will come to you. And we've waited. We've done the process. We've spoke to all the people. I'm sure we have a fleshed out pecking order of who we would hire if we do not get Ben Johnson. But we know the vibes. The league knows it. Everyone's speaking on it. He's the betting favorite. He said fantastic with his whole damn jaw when asked about Adam Peters. We are on a collision course to Ben Johnson being the head coach in D.C. Magic, Rails, Harris, Spillman, Myers, they're going on a business trip. They're going with the suitcase open, contract in hand, and they're coming back with the head coach, baby. Senior Bowl starts next week. We need to get a staff on. We got to get a staff ready. We got to, even if he's playing in the Super Bowl, I want him going into the Super Bowl knowing he is the head coach of the Washington Commanders. And this guy is a wanted guy for no reason. He is a diabolical killer of a play caller. And X's and O's, thorough communicator. Everyone speaks glowingly of him. He speaks clear. He speaks concise. There's no verbal gymnastics when he goes to the podium. The media's going to love him. Fans are going to love him. And boy, can that motherfucker scheme up some offense. This guy is a connected play caller. He's like a technician boxer. I said this on Josh's show yesterday. You know how a boxer can tap you with the jab a couple times early just to see how you're going to defend it? And then they come back later and hit you over the top with a haymaker. Good night. Left, right, good night. That is Ben Johnson as a play caller. Ben Johnson will call 7 different plays out of the exact same look, motions and everything. Exact same look, different play. He sets defenses up and he comes with the counter punch every time. It doesn't feel like he's ever in a situation where he's not a step ahead of his opponent. That's what I want here for Washington, and that's what I believe we're getting. But let's talk about if for some reason the Atlanta job or the Seattle job becomes more enticing than Washington, how would I rank the other Washington candidates? And this is how I would do it. I think our number 2 should be Mike Macdonald for the Ravens, but I think our number 2 is Raheem Morris. defensive coordinator, Los Angeles Rams. We know Raheem's been around. We know Raheem's been qualified. And we know he didn't get a fair shake his first time as a head coach. When you have Josh Freeman as a quarterback, you were never meant to thrive in this league as a head coach. You had no chance. It was a failure from the start. Failure at launch. Raheem Morris, the entire league speaks freely. They speak amazing things about Raheem Morris. Jalen Ramsey was just on a show the other day, and he said everybody in the league will want to play for whoever Raheem Morris gets hired for because the guy's amazing. He's an amazing players coach. Everybody likes and agree. Like, he's not old. He's a modern thinker. He comes from that Shanahan University of y'all need to learn how to coach on both sides of the ball. So Raheem Morris has coached like every position on both sides of the ball. So he has a forward way of thinking, and he's not pigeonholed to one side of the ball. And one thing I do know, if we did hire Raheem Morris, we would have one of the best staffs in the league because everybody in the league is connected to Raheem Morris. He's worked everywhere with everyone. And people would be lined up out the door to work for Raheem Morris. So if Ben Johnson doesn't work out, I think Raheem Morris is number 2 on that list. Mike McDonald of the Ravens has to be number 3 because the work he's doing in Baltimore is astounding. It may not be his time yet. It may be next year. He may have to go back to Baltimore one more time, but he got these boys playing Super Bowl caliber football. And if they shut down Mahomes this weekend, his stock is going to be at an all-time high. And it may be hard to not give him a job. That would be my number 3. I wish it wasn't, but I think number 4 is Dan Quinn. Number 4 should be Bobby Slowick. But I think it's Dan Quinn. They love Dan Quinn. He's a defensive mastermind, just like Raheem Morris, who he also worked with in Atlanta. Everybody loves Dan Quinn. Fans wouldn't think it's a sexy hire, and fans can look at the sample size of how bad his team played in the playoffs this year. But Dan Quinn is a phenomenal defensive coordinator, one of the best in the league. I think that's the order, and Slowick rounds out that list. You see Harbaugh here on the graphic because we made this graphic before everything started. Harbaugh, you are a chief. It is Ben Johnson's job to lose for the Washington head coaching job. I think Raheem Morris gets it if Ben Johnson doesn't get it. And if for some reason it's not Ben Johnson or Raheem Morris, it'll be Mike McDonald or Dan Quinn. Very interesting. It seems as if Washington interviewed more defensive guys than offensive guys because they wanted a very specific offensive-minded coach, and it looks like we're on track to get him. Boomer Esiason on his radio show today said it's a lock. Ben Johnson's going to Washington. A lot of people are starting to put those tea leaves together. I'll believe it when I see it, but I don't imagine Josh Harris and company are getting on the private jet, headed up to nasty-ass Detroit, and coming back empty-handed. What Denzel say in that interview with Jamie Foxx? I'm leaving with something. We're interviewing Aaron Glenn while we're up there too. I wish we could parlay 2 of these candidates. So either Anthony Weaver, defensive line coach to Baltimore, or Aaron Glenn. I wish we could parlay them as the DC for Ben Johnson. It's easier with Weaver because Weaver's a defensive line coach, so we could promote him the defensive coordinator. But the other DCs we're interviewing, that would be a lateral move, and that's not something teams allow. But if you give them the elevated title of assistant head coach, associate head coach, then that's different. But I'm not sure we're trying to operate in that fashion. But it would be great if this defensive line coach for the Ravens, Anthony Weaver, could be the defensive coordinator when we hire Ben Johnson sometime next week. Also, go Lions, bro. I'm not rooting on your downfall. Go be great, Ben. Punch you a ticket to the Super Bowl. Everybody should be rooting for the Detroit Lions. We've seen the 49ers get there before. I want to see some new blood, and I would love to see the Detroit Lions punch their ticket to the Super Bowl, because imagine our next head coach coming in with the cachet and on his resume, coached in the most recent Super Bowl. You love that. That's something you can talk to guys, something you can preach to guys. I've been there, y'all. I've coordinated the offense that made it to the Super Bowl as the 3 seed. Listen to me when I speak. I don't think Ben Johnson will have any problem resonating with anybody. I don't think he will have any communication issues. And that whole leader of men thing is some overblown boomer Dom Lavero bullshit. Bullshit. Also, while we're here, slight rant. Fuck Tom Lavera. Tom Lavera, however you want to pronounce it. I love listening to Kevin Sheehan's show. I've listened to him for years. I cannot tolerate listening to that show when that old fart is on it because he's nails on a chalkboard. He makes no sense. He adds no value to the conversation when he comes on. He just comes on with his nails on a chalkboard as voice and spouts hatred and get off my lawn boomer bullshit for the entire show. Rant over because I'm not going to give him a full minute of my time. This is how I view the coaching situation playing out. And we can go over our predictions one more time. Washington is getting Ben Johnson. Dan Quinn to the Seahawks, Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers, Dave Canales to the Carolina Panthers, and let's say Bill Belichick for the Atlanta Falcons. That to go with Gerard Mayo of the Patriots, Antonio Pierce to the Raiders, and Brian Callahan to the Tennessee Titans. I wonder if he's going to bring his pops, former Washington offensive line coach Bill Callahan, to join him up there in Tennessee. That's all I got for right now. As more updates come out, I will be here. I will be potting. I will be adding updates as well. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commander. Rio, out.